think we have people keep streaming in. We're on 72 people now. That is a fair number, a nice number for us. I usually open up our sessions. It's always intriguing to me how many people book for something and then how many people attend. And for those of you who've come to a lot of our open days or a lot of our sessions might have heard this 100 times before, but I like to say in a real event, the days we still had real events, 1 in 3 people would show up. So if 3 people book, one student would show up. And then I would always say, half the battle is won because you show up for yourself. For every one person that's there, you can look around you and say, there's 2 people who then had other priorities. But just that you can prioritize this for yourself already means a lot. Abiwe says she can't hear anything. I'm going to ask Luca to message you directly. From what I'm not the technical support today, but from what I've heard before, if you have some problems, it sometimes helps to leave and then come back in. I see Mashudu is helping. Okay, fantastic, great. I see everybody is on it. Let me just get back to my main screen where I can see most of the speakers. Excellent. Okay, it's 5:05. It is a good time to get started. On occasion, our technical support might mute everybody because sometimes some background noise comes through, and it's just so that everybody can hear properly. You are also welcome to put your cameras off to save everybody bandwidth. Session, I think your camera might be on. Okay, perfect. Great. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm happy to see so many of you here today, and I see there are people queuing to get in. For those of you who are in already, you got the good seats. More people are still joining, but I think we need to get started. I am Nikki Maritz, and I'm the CEO of IBTC, and IBTC is a CIMA Global Learning Partner based in South Africa with students across South Africa and Southern Africa. Today is our first session of a 3-day conference, and I'm excited to officially open the proceedings for tonight. I would like to introduce my distinguished guests tonight. With us, we have Sarah Bucks. Sarah is the Associate Director of Southern Africa for CIMA.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to today's session and the conference in total. And as always, just to spend time in the company of the CIMA stakeholder matrix.
Thank you, Sarah. I must say, the moment I reached out to you and said we're going to do something for the students, you jumped on it with such eagerness. And I think the moment you hear that there's benefit for students or members, you're always extremely keen to participate. And thank you for putting the rest of the things you're doing on hold to be here with us tonight. Just CIMA's focus always on what is best for the student is always, it's your guiding principle. So thank you for that.
It's my pleasure.
I also have to say to Shabangu, she couldn't make it. She was called to important meeting, I believe an EXCO meeting last minute, and she might be joining us a little bit later. I did have a pre-session with Desetso in which we played around with the theme and had a bit of a discussion. And if Desetso doesn't join us, I might just share with you her input and her gold nuggets, if you like. Desetso is the executive manager of finance at Transnet. She's also an old IBTC student and also served on the CIMA Regional Advisory Panel. And the interesting thing about Desetso is that after her MBA, she came to IBTC to do her CIMA. And tonight I want to explore what motivated her to study CIMA and how it has impacted her career. And then last but not least, some of you might know Sue. She was an IBTC lecturer before, and now she's joined us as the finance manager. Sue is a CGMA and qualified in the UK. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you for having me this evening. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my CIMA experiences with everyone this evening. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so Sarah, I think we can kick off with some interesting facts about CIMA. Would you like to briefly give us some history?
Yes, thank you, Nikki. For the purpose of conserving bandwidth, I have just turned on my camera to prove that I'm a humanoid. But in having established that, and with your permission, I will turn off my camera to aid the bandwidth and improve my audibility. So camera going off. So yes, thank you, Nikki, and good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Bucks, head of CIMA Southern Africa, and I really want to acknowledge IBTC and the exceptional leadership vision for hosting such an event. It is my pleasure to participate and to take you through a historical overview and present some insights to affirm the key role that IBTC has played along this journey, especially as a key valued partner to CIMA South Africa. So I think it's important to establish how CIMA South Africa as well as IBTC intersect and how they come together in this value creation, especially where you intersect with the student journey. CIMA South Africa and IBTC are two separate business entities. And CIMA's core capability is the development of qualifications, the learning content and professional standards. But CIMA does not get involved in the provision of tuition. And this is where CIMA relies on valued entities such as IBTC to provide tuition to our students in a highly regulated and a compliant way that ensures our students are always prepared for exam success, be it COVID or any other volatility or uncertainty. But IBTC is there at the cold front preparing our students. A little bit about IBTC, and since its inception in 2006, IBTC has gone on to become a well-recognized and well-respected tuition provider in South Africa, and of more recency, expanding its foray into Southern Africa, where IBTC has continued to be a game changer in terms of the number of students registered year on year who have gone on to successfully take exams. For me, what stands out is the dedication, commitment, and passion that IBTC brings to our students' learning journey and qualification experience. So whilst I'm telling you about IBTC, I want to publicly take the opportunity to thank IBTC for being a valued partner to CIMA. I also want to, it's a pleasure, Nikki. I also want to just spend a little bit of time telling you about the CIMA history and to briefly touch upon the future. How does the CIMA qualification ensure that your skill set and your competencies is right for a digital and yet an uncertain future? So let us just spend some time discussing the CIMA history. So CIMA's had an interesting and an ever-evolving history, and one that is both what we pride ourselves on, one that is moving along as professional bodies seek to provide competencies through their qualifications, through their curriculum, to stay relevant in terms of the students' and members' needs, but more significantly, in terms of industry and an economy sustainability. So interesting fact, CIMA started in 1919. I'm sure some of you cannot even compute how far back that goes to, but that's where we started in 1919 as the Institute of Cost and Works Accountants with just 37 members. In 1920, the first exam was held, and a year later, the first female was admitted to the Institute, and her name was Miriam Niel. I say this with the utmost pride as we know that the world over, and even right now in 2021, the accounting profession remains largely dominated by the male demographic. I have no problem with gender, but we do look for the transformation and the integrated skill set and the integrated thinking. In 1936, membership reached 1,000, and in the next year, we saw the costing terminology establish the science of cost accounting. Even during the war, you'd be interested to know, British servicemen wrote their CIMA exams in Germany's prisoner of war camps. And you might also know that CIMA, or may not know, and I'm about to share, that CIMA's first foreign office was established in South Africa. Back in 1955, and only 14 years later, the Institute appointed a committee to develop CIMA as an international body. We saw some name changes, and in 1975, the Institute was granted a royal charter. It was only in 1986 that the Institute changed its name to the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, acronym CIMA, and almost 10 years later, CIMA members were given the right to use the title Chartered Management Accountant. By 1999, membership had soared to 50,000. In 2012, we saw the designation CGMA, Chartered Global Management Accountant, introduced, and that is by virtue of the joint venture with the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. In as early as 2015, way before COVID, way before any of the volatilities and uncertainties that we currently face, CIMA was a game changer by shifting its exam to a computer-based platform and on-demand exams. By 2017, the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants was formed, and there are now more than 650,000 members in over 177 countries. And as I go on and speak to the association, I will acronym it and use the shortened term, the association. Under the single association, the joint and the largest, most influential accounting bodies globally, we continue the journey insofar as entrusting our members and students with prosperity, trust, and opportunity. And we work in the association as the unified voice of the AICPA and CIMA. And under these two bodies, we power the huge and well-respected globally designations of the CPA and the CGMA. One of the hallmarks of the association is that it is a research-intensive approach to education, employment, and sustainable economies. And from our research, I would like to share a few interesting findings with you and discourse how does this impact your education and your employability. So I'm going to share a few facts with you and findings arising from our research. The first one is quite a staggering one. And the first one, which is also concurred by other external independent research, it says that 65% of children entering primary school today, irrespective of which market this might be in, will ultimately end up working in new job types that do not yet even exist. So the question is, how are we providing a qualification and competencies and skill sets to get children ready for jobs that do not yet even exist? And I will answer my question a little later as we move along. The other interesting fact that I would like to share with you, and for those of you who are already engaged professionals, you're probably going to be left with asking, so what for me? By 2020, which is a mere 9 years away from now, up to 375 million people will have to switch occupations and learn new skill sets to remain relevant and employable. How interesting is that, and probably mind-boggling too. So this illustration is one of my favorite images, where we do a comparative between the two bars, and the blue bar represents the future state and the red bar represents the current state. And what the bars illustrate, particularly the variance between the blue bar and the red bar, particularly as you move towards your right, is that there's a gap between where we are currently and where we want to be in the future state in terms of the activities relating to the finance function in the future. And again, speaking to what are the gaps and what are the competencies and what are the skill sets one would have to acquire in order to still be relevant in that future state. Next slide, please. The fourth finding that I would like to spend a little bit of time on and speak through is this advent of technology and how is technology changing the world. But more significantly, the speed and the scope to which technology is indeed changing the world. This rapid pace at which the world is changing compels a person to study a qualification that prepares you for not only for the now, but also for that future, and particularly the future needs of businesses. If you think about how the world is changing beyond the advent of blockchain and represented by these cells that you see on your screen here, you will actually realize that technology is that game changer and is going to be the distinguishing factor between whether you are still relevant and future fit for that 2030 finance function, or do you run the risk of being left behind? We now talk about technologies such as we're doing business on a cloud. We talk about the risk of being replaced by robots, particularly with robotic process automation, which reduces manual operations by up to 40%. And even worse still, reduces the need for human interaction because technology can replace it completely. But whilst that sounds like a doom and gloom, I would also invite you to look at the opportunities, and particularly my earlier slide, the slide that I spoke to right at the beginning, where I said 65% of our school entrants will be doing jobs that do not yet exist. So whilst technologies are replacing our current jobs, our current occupations, and making some skill sets redundant, there's also the evolution of new occupations, new jobs, new competencies, new skill sets. And so there is also that opportunity that exists. Data visualization, it is a tool that allows big data to be graphically represented and analyzed in terms of looking at trends and trend lines, is set to take the world by storm and is set to grow exponentially from 2017 and having a market share of 4.5 billion USD to a market share of 7.8 billion USD by 2023. That is just a few years. And an increase in market share and in revenue to that amount will speak to the speed at which this is actually gaining gravitas. By 2025, we anticipate that the world will create and replicate 163 zettabytes of data annually, where a zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes. So we're still speaking about the gig economy and the gigabyte economy, but by 2025, we would have evolved to what is called the zettabyte. Next slide, please. So I've said a lot through the findings of our research. I've said a lot about how organizations will face different challenges. How organizations, in order to remain sustainable, will need new performances. But underpinning these performances, you will need new competencies. And then the key question that arises, the so what question is, how must we arrange learning so that learning will be able to propel these kinds of competencies and bring about these kinds of performances in organizations, so organizations would have a workforce that is relevant, future fit, as well as able to address the challenges that organizations will be facing. And I'm very delighted and very proud to say that arising out of our extensive research, CIMA had changed its professional qualification in 2019 and launched its new syllabus to include some of the topics that you see in bold print on your screen. And some of these that ensure that our students and members are future ready, future fit, and ready to bring value to businesses in that future that we have not yet been able to scope. We have included things such as digital strategy, digital technologies, digital costing, digital literacy, data analytics, business models, data visualization, cybersecurity, and ecosystem analysis, to name just a few. But because time is not on my side, I do not have the luxury to go through some of these in detail. I think at this point, I would just pause and hand it back to Nikki and check in if Nikki has anything to add on or would like me to continue with.
Thank you, Sarah. That's always very insightful. I think sometimes we study something and we don't have the time because we are studying to go back and just look a little bit at the history. But often, the future is informed by where we come from. So that's always very interesting to see. The other thing that I think is quite relevant to what you said is that remember the days, the good old days when CIMA did syllabus reviews every 5 years. And that was an acceptable rate of change. And then suddenly with digitization and the world changing so quickly, it just didn't make any sense anymore to do it every 5 years. And now there isn't a period to it, if I'm not mistaken. And it is just a constant updating of the syllabus, because at the end of the day, the type of person, the CGMA that you deliver and the competence and the skill set comes from one place, and that is the syllabus. And that's why the syllabus reviews are so interesting.
Thank you, Nikki. And I think that is, if we speak around the urgency of now, and we speak around the rate and the pace at which change is actually happening, every 5 years may catch us actually running the risk of becoming irrelevant. So I think what would happen is that we would refresh the syllabus every year as we start to see new trend lines insofar as content requirements to keep our students and members at the cutting edge of their competencies and their skill sets. So whilst I say every year, it could even be contracted to a shorter period, but it's all based on what is our assessment and what's our insight telling us, and what is the rate at which we need to refresh our syllabus.
And I think when one needs to make a decision about which qualification I'm going to do, when you're not in academia, then it might not necessarily be the first thing you think of is to go and look at the syllabus and see, does it teach me the things that will be in demand in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time? Is it a future-based syllabus, or does it look a little bit dated? Sometimes it's as easy as that.
Absolutely.
Sarah
Absolutely.
and I love talking about the syllabus and the curriculum and the competencies. The other thing that I also always find interesting, Sarah, which CIMA just casually mentions, is that you have representation, CIMA's in demand in 177 countries. And I always think, you know how many countries that is? How many of us go to 5 countries in our lifetime, or 10 countries? Or I don't know one single person that has worked in 177 countries. But I think the idea is, if you're going to go be placed somewhere in the world, it's going to be one of those 177 countries.
Absolutely, and fastly evolving in terms of geographical footprint. And I think, Nikki, if the world is not going to be our entire geographies, what with trips to Mars and so on, best we be starting to increase the number of 177. But what that indicates and what that demonstrates to a holder of a CIMA qualification is your global mobility. And the most important thing is, when you arrive in any of those 177 countries, you need not take any qualifying board exams to be able to start to enter the world of work immediately.
I think that's a very important point. I think it's going to come up again, and if it doesn't, would you care to repeat it again when we get to that point? I was thinking of, we once had a student at an open day, and unfortunately I'd forgotten his name, but I loved it so much that I then declared, I am now going to make it my own. But he said, why study local when your aspirations are global?
And I mean, in as much as you're adopting the students' line, you know, it's absolutely relevant, particularly if you think of, we now live and work in a global village. So I think with the virtual kind of engagement, I don't need to be sitting in the United States to be working in the United States. I can sit in any location, and I could be executing my duties. And again, it's about working in the cloud, the advent of technology.
Which has now become very apparent for all of us in the time of COVID. It's now suddenly that has just been fast-tracked. But Sarah, I have a tricky question for you. One that might, we always get this question in all our sessions, especially from current students. And they want to know, what is CIMA doing for me? What is CIMA's plans for South Africa and Southern Africa? What is CIMA doing to enhance my employability and the brand acceptance? And because this session is about CIMA in a South African context, I have to bring up the CASA qualification with SAICA. And we still know that, SAICA still rules SA commerce, and a quarter of the CEOs of the country's biggest firms are CAs, and 90% of the financial directors. How is that changing for our CGMAs in South and Southern Africa?
Thank you, Nikki, and thanks for saying that it's a tricky question. I would rather say it's a question that intrigues me, and only because, first and foremost, we have the utmost respect for the CASA designation, and SAICA is a valued partner of CIMA, and I will try to answer the question in as many parts as I possibly can, taking into account the number of minutes allocated to me. So first and foremost, I want to declare that SAICA is not perceived as a competitor to CIMA. Rather, we want to look at ourselves as collaborators who jointly and together with other finance and accounting professional bodies are seeking to regulate as well as to re-establish the public trust in the finance and accounting profession. So we're working very hard together on a number of platforms through a number of advocacy pieces to change perceptions of what the finance and accounting landscape in South Africa looks like. But on a peculiarly CIMA pursuit, I'm also working very hard to change the perception of what are the finance qualifications that are accessible.
You must cover. It's cold.
I heard an interference. Am I back on the mic? Okay.
Yes.
So to change the perceptions of what are the leading finance qualifications, finance and accounting qualifications that are accessible in South Africa. In leading the brand and the brand visibility, as well as starting to make a difference and an influence and an impact in the landscape, one has to be realistic and one has to accept that the SAICA designation has been in the market far longer than the CIMA designation. But having said that, we know that the market and customer empowerment is what changes the longevity of something over the demand for something. And some of the key value propositions that through customer empowerment we are seeing is starting to change the demand is the fact around the global mobility, but also around the diverse and the integrated spectrum of skill sets and competencies that the CIMA qualification offers. So in terms of speaking around the CIMA qualification, we also know that in taking a CIMA qualification and the 5 competencies that exists within our framework, one is not limited to a finance and or an accounting profession. So whereas the SAICA qualification is largely looking at the specialization of audit and accounting, the CIMA qualification gives you a broader spectrum of employability and industry sectors that you can be engaging in. What we also learned, Nikki, was that from a comparability point of view, in terms of how we registered the qualification on the South African National Qualification Framework, we had to bring it on par with the other qualifications such as the CASA qualification, by example. And where the CASA qualification sat at an NQF level 8, CIMA prior to Q4 2020 sat at an NQF level 7. I'm proud to say we have now been re-registered and re-recognized by the South African Qualifications Authority, and we are now sitting at an NQF level 8 with equivalence with the CASA designation.
Isn't that great?
That is fantastic.
That's
In fact, I would welcome a round of applause, but I know that our administrator is not going to unmute everybody. I think we've already spoken around the value proposition around the global mobility, and that when you enter into any of these other 176 countries.
Did we lose Sarah there for a moment?
Am I still audible?
Yes, you are back.
Okay, thank you. I think that, and I'm just going, my internet connectivity is telling me I'm unstable. The connection is unstable.
Never believe your internet.
We're also focusing, Nikki, very, very critically on the value of ethics in the profession and the robust code of professionalization that CIMA brings into the market. And I think, in particular, and of recency and of all the debacles that South Africa has been in the spotlight for, and individuals from a particular professional body coming up again and again, we start to say that this is the reason that you need that integrated thinking. You need the integrated skill sets. And so an over dominance of one particular kind of qualification in the marketplace can lend itself possibly to a large extent to these kinds of debacles. So let's look at—
It's very interesting, Sarah. I never looked at it that way. It's the same with the democracy. You can't just have one very strong party. You need a balance. You need a party, an opposition party. So what you are saying, and I'm a little bit off script now, but I like it so much that you say the over-dominance of one type of qualification brings with it its own problems.
Absolutely.
I just want to. I have another way, not another way of looking at it, but a slightly different angle. Before I get to that slide, I just want to briefly say something that we missed earlier. What I know about what CIMA is doing for its students and members in South Africa, I always find very interesting. And when I speak to other professional bodies, I would always say, this is how CIMA is approaching it because I found it so interesting. So what you would do is we'll call it a multi-pronged approach. So you would have people going to high schools and universities while you also go to work. You have another team of people who work with the employers, and then you have people who work with um, the key influencers, and sometimes those could be parents, or it could be the principal or the university academics, and that multi-pronged approach, which I was introduced to about 10 years ago. I thought that was quite interesting because it's a little bit bottoms up and top down approach to make sure that you don't just have one approach to improving the brand acceptance of CIMA in South Africa. So I've always really appreciated that, and students don't always see that, but you could see it in the change in demand for CIMA students. Now I have another slide which is a little bit could be contentious, but it's my way of looking at it. So if I look at, sometimes we can look at the value of a qualification. I chose to this time look at the route to a qualification and what does that mean? And it's specifically because it speaks a little bit to what the SAICA said to me. So if I look at the CIMA qualification, then CIMA's open entry, and for SAICA you require a degree. And they are both fine. I'm not saying the one is bad and the other one is good. It is merely sometimes something suits you a little bit better. And also CIMA allows for exemptions if you have an existing degree or qualification or experience. And sometimes this difference makes CIMA more accessible to a wider audience, I feel. Because the one qualification would only take you if you come through a degree, whereas the other one is an open entry. And then another way of looking at it is the difference in approach to the practical component. So with CIMA, I really like it, is the practical component is work experience that is documented and then signed off. And it's also something that Sue feels quite strongly about, and I'm going to chat to her about it just now. And with SAICA, the work experience is articles at an audit firm at a very low salary. And where that is problematic sometimes for our working students is that you cannot stop. If you're in a career, you can't stop that career and then go and do your articles. So that's the other difference for me in journey. The third one would be, and it's debatable which one people prefer, but I like that there's multiple little exams that increase in complexity and scope. So one you fail some, you pass some, and so you walk the journey. Whereas with SAICA, there's then your degree exams, but then 2 notoriously grueling board exams after your degree.
I think, Nikki, if I could just add in at that point, I think, I wouldn't hazard into the SAICA journey. And I mean, it is what it is. And I'm sure that there is every rationale for the way SAICA does it. But what I would like to add, and thank you for pointing this out, is that we at CIMA, we're always, we never work in a market without taking into account the legacy and the history of that market. And we in South Africa are marked by a very interesting history and the legacy of apartheid. And we understand that access to meaningful, constructive engagement and education that will allow you to participate in the economy and grow the economy, but also grow individuals and families and communities and societies and so on, is very, very important. And that's the reason we take the multi-pronged approach, because for us, education is not the filling of a pail, but it's the lighting of a fire. And so we've got to be in every space to light up the fire. It's also why we believe that there should not be one entry point into the CIMA qualification alone. We also take into account the country's policy around recognition of prior learning, where very, very seasoned, experienced individuals have all this experience, but no formal tertiary education, just because such was the history of our country. And last but not least, we also believe that when we make the education more accessible with multi-level exit points, so you can exit with an NQF level 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8, or we make practical experience more attainable without one having to leave one's job because one might be a breadwinner. This is how we open up the qualification, and this is how we start to transform the finance and education, finance and accounting profession. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So you often talk about the difference between articles and workplace experience and how that plays out in one's job readiness. Any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yes, I think an important point that you mentioned earlier, especially here in South Africa, Nikki, is this fact about a person in South Africa that could have worked for 10 years and had all this experience but no qualification. And then if they decide to start studying CIMA, they've already got their practical experience. They don't have to start again and earn that low salary. They can already keep earning the salary that they have been earning and study at the same time. So I think that's a big factor for a lot of people in this country. But also, as discussed earlier, the 3 years of work experience for CAs is, of course, mainly auditing, whereas for CIMA, it's a range of functions. I was very fortunate enough to have management accounting, logistics, production planning, systems implementation, which was a wide range of functions. And all those different experiences help contribute to my understanding of the business, to understand how the key interactions between different departments worked. And that's what I loved about business, is to learn all the different ways of interacting. So very definitely, by the time a person has completed the CIMA practical experience, they should be very well aligned to understanding the business, and then which in turn helps them to have the right skill set and the diverse skill set, as Sarah mentioned, to be able to help that business to make better decisions, especially better strategic decisions, which everybody wants from a finance person.
Yes. Tell me, Sue, why did you are don't want to make you blush, but probably the best chartered management accountant, global chartered management accountant I know. And why did you choose to study CIMA?
Well, I qualified with CIMA back in 1995, a very long time ago. So the school, the subjects and the syllabus has changed dramatically since I qualified. But one thing I knew, and I think this is important for everybody, you have to really understand your strengths and weaknesses. And I knew that I didn't want to go the auditing route, and I wanted to focus on being more involved in the business and, you know, have greater exposure to the different functions within the company. You know, as mentioned earlier, as a management accountant, I was very involved in this with the sales department, the marketing, product development, customer support. And by understanding these different departments, I very quickly learned how a business functions. And that was invaluable for me. And, you know, to have that good insight into the way a company operates helps an accountant to help that business create, you know, added value activities. And that's really what businesses want from accountants. And especially in this day and age, you know, us accountants, we need to be responsive, we need to be agile and flexible, we need to be constantly adapting to the environment, to the new ways of working, new technology, etc. And, you know, I truly believe that the CIMA syllabus, the competencies, the ethics, everything that you learned through CIMA, the way the exams are, the practical experience, all of those really equip you to have the perfect skill sets to carry out your finance roles and responsibilities. So yes, it's held me in very good stead, and I'm very happy that I did it, and I've never looked back. So I've never regretted doing CIMA, which I think is really what you want to be when you do get to my age.
I definitely think that role suits you well, Sue, and there's definitely a different level of business input that you can give, that one can give when you see and understand the bigger picture of an organization.
Absolutely.
Everything from project management to HR management to change management, culture, and then if the role is of a chartered management accountant to provide business insight, then you can say it is not just financial numbers insight, but it's true business insight.
Yes. And to be able to help the business to analyze those numbers and adapt if the business needs to adapt. And that is what's key, because that's happening constantly, you know, not only in South Africa, but in the whole world. So, you know, that, and I think CIMA is fantastic for teaching us that.
Yes, yes. You know, Sue, we have a lot of topics to discuss, and I'm trying to pick my best ones. I wanted to ask you about salary and equivalence in the UK,
Yes.
and I also wanted to ask you, because I found that quite intriguing, if a CGMA has all these tools in their tool belt and COVID hit, were there some tools that you didn't use that much previously, but now suddenly you have to be a ninja with it? But I think I'm not going to go with that one, although I would love to at some point discuss with you the real sort of South African problems, the Africa problems that we're facing.
Yes. You know, I think, I mean, we quickly mentioned salary there, and I think it's important for everybody in South Africa to know, and I want to reiterate what Sarah was saying about CIMA being a global qualification, because I was fortunate enough to work in the UK for 8 years, and I can tell you now that they viewed CAs and CGMAs equally. And in terms of salary, the jobs that you could apply for. So that's very reassuring to know that. And as Sarah mentioned, you know, potentially, you know, you could work in South Africa and do a UK job. So that's important to keep in mind. I mean, we have many issues in South Africa that are slightly different to the UK. And the rest of the world. You know, for us, it's the access to technology and cheap and affordable technology and cheap and affordable data, and which I think we've seen through our COVID pandemic, that's, you know, was a big problem for many companies, and we're still trying to overcome that on a day-to-day basis. And then the other one that's a big issue is always the load shedding that comes in, the no electricity for certain periods of time, and how that affects productivity or increases cost to business by purchasing generators, technology to help us overcome the problem of no electricity. So we've got many different problems, but, you know, as South Africans, we're used to challenges, and we're always trying to find a way to overcome them.
Yes, thank you, Sue. We have to wrap up now, but I just want to tell them that at some point I said to Sue, oh, I was so relieved when I saw that in the UK, the Queen, which I saw on The Crown, they also have load shedding. And then Sue said, yes, but Nikki, that was in 1950, whenever that was. Okay, so I am... Sarah, do you have any final comments for us? And then we I can probably take one or two questions after that. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. I just loved Sue's a story, because we're always listening about qualifications from just an academic perspective. But there is no better story to tell than the one from a practical view. And what I particularly loved, Sue, was your ability to have worked in a number of units and still be able to add value because of the diverse spectrum of your competencies through the qualification. I enjoyed that. It was my highlight, no doubt.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, I think I have, I will stop sharing at this point because I lost control of the slides. So I can see if there are one or two questions. I just want to point out that in 6 minutes, we have our next session starting, which is the value of CIMA globally. Let's see if I can get this up again. Yes, it's up. Let's see, sorry. Okay, no, I'm going to stop trying. Okay, so the next session is at 6 o'clock with Nicola Dean from BBP and Trevor Robertshaw from CIMA in the UK. It's about the value of CIMA globally. And I really enjoyed this session. Our goal was to bring real people from South Africa and see it all in a South African context. And I hope you all found value in it. And that you would stay on for the next session. Let me just see, do we have any questions that we could answer? Let me see. What I can ask the team to do is to download all the questions and make sure none of them go unanswered. I have somebody, thank you, Netsai, says I want to study with IBTC. How do I go about it? A lot of people say, thank you very much. This is so informative. Some questions about exemptions. You know, the moment we talk about exemptions, when we have these sessions, everybody's quiet. And the moment you mention exemptions, everybody has 1,000 questions, because it is one of the benefits of CIMA that we've got these advanced placement routes. If my team wants to point out one question to me, if not, then I am happy to end it. Let's just see if anything comes up. Yes, I see there is some other sessions that are coming up is about your practical experience requirement. Also, that is done by Sarah's team, Premi and Patrick. They've done the presentation before. We've seen it. It is extremely helpful to see how you document your practical experience.